Hello. Hello. I have no idea what time is a good time on Facebook here. And so we'll see how many people turn up. Yesterday I was on, I think at 5:30, and I'd only got 34 people. So that's good though. It means I can answer all your questions. So while we're waiting, I'd love to know where you're from, by the way. What part of the world are you from? I'm here in Vancouver, Canada, and it's actually cold and sunny right now. So where are you from? It's interesting. I'm new on Facebook, and everyone's got their real names on here. I'm not used to that. I'm used to TikTok and Instagram, especially TikTok. There are really weird names on there. So where? Oh, Ontario. Hi, Canadian. Interesting. Colorado. Hello, welcome. So I'm just asking people where they're from. Windsor. It's Ontario, right? Windsor, Ontario. It's funny, whenever I travel, I never go to Canada. I always go somewhere far. I guess most people do that, go somewhere far away. When I was a kid, we used to do the car trips to visit family. But South Dakota. South Dakota. Close to Detroit. Canada is incredible. So is America. So is Australia, where my kids were born and raised. I haven't been to a country I didn't like. There's always something nice about every place, right? Mississippi, hello. St. Clair, Ohio. St. Clairsville, Ohio. Okay, let's get into your parenting questions because Deanna's asked. 3-year-old hitting and biting siblings for seemingly no reason. How do you deal? She's been lashing out recently by hitting. Okay. What often happens at the age of 3, that's when they can start to reason and think before they act. If you haven't been a leader and they know you're not a leader, at 3 years old, they often go, wait a minute, you're not in charge. I think I will be. So they often find their power at the age of 3. So I strongly suggest work on yourself, your leadership skills, and that stuff generally doesn't happen. But every single time she hits, I would put that on the behavior board, say no hitting. And if she does hit a younger sibling, that younger sibling gets to play with her favorite toy for a half an hour or something like that. So you do something mean to someone, you got to do something nice for them. That's one of my clients' favorite consequences. The punishment fits the crime. If you're mean to someone, they get your favorite toy for a half hour. So give that a go. The behavior board's completely free. It's in my description or whatever is Facebook here. All my courses and my free behavior board and my coaching, all the links, it's all in that one link. So if you want to check out the free behavior board, that's what you use to teach her not to hit. You know, we all learn through consequences. That's why we pay our taxes, because we don't want to go to jail. That's why we pay our mortgage and our rent, because we don't want to lose our home. That's why we don't speed as much as we'd like to, because we might get caught. So we all learn through consequences. Kids are no different. Parents are very slow to give consequences. They seem to want to reason everything out. Doesn't work. Well, if it does, let me know. If you have super easy kids, anything's going to work. You can do everything wrong and they'll still turn out fine. So, but that's rare. 2-parent household, one follow better than another, thus some behavior occurred only with one parent. That just says to me that one's the authority or the leader. I teach leadership of parenting. So one's either the authority or the leader, and the other one's the pleaser. The pleaser is the one who's always trying to reason, always trying to keep them happy. If I do this, will you do that? Well, you know, always trying to sort of give in to everything and not let them have their own way. Those are the parents that the kids wipe their feet on. The old-fashioned authority parenting style, it's not a bad way to parent. Kids tend to rebel in the teen years, but then they come out the other end appreciating their parents and what they did for them. And the kids turn out just fine. They're strong individuals. The pleaser parent style, which is so trendy right now, it's been around for about 30 years. It started with participation awards. Stupidest thing I ever heard of. Anyway, I saw that coming and I thought, oh my God. Anyway, that tends to raise self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues. And they never appreciate their parents. They wipe their feet all over them. They treat them like dish rags. So yeah, it's not a good way to parent. I teach leadership. It doesn't form rebellion in the teen years, and you can be friends with your kids. It's about being accountable yourself, showing them how it's done. You learn how to bring out the best in your kids. Okay, so let's get going. I'm new here on Facebook, so it's all new to me, these lives. I've been doing lives on TikTok for about a year, um, year and a half almost, almost closer to, yeah, a year and a half. I've been doing lives every day on TikTok and Instagram for about 3 months now. I've been doing lives pretty much every day on TikTok, on Instagram. But now I'm new on Facebook, so that's why there's only 23 people. I should be able to get to all the questions. I'm used to them questions flying, so I can't get to even a tenth of them. So now I'm having to ask for questions. It's very humbling. Okay, 2-year-old that is medically complicated has big tantrums. She has some medical trauma, 4 ICU visits in 6 months. We ignore tantrums, but she's figured out how to fake breathing issues, which is hard to ignore. You would have to hire me for coaching. That's a specialty. That's not something I can give a general answer here on live. So if you want my help and you want me to figure that out with you, you have to hire me. But my suggestion is wait it out because she's just 2. She's just going to go through stage after stage after stage. So yeah, that little scam face she's faking. They're pretty clever. Okay. I'm going to read out my 5 top tips for parenting toddlers. The number 1 is child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2 is you set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. Number 3 is you connect with them by entering their world. You don't go to the nail salon with a 2-year-old. You go to the park and roll down the hill with them. And number 4 is similar. It's about how do you discipline a toddler. It's in their world. It's all actions, consistent corrective actions, because they learn through repetition. It's not these mini therapy sessions that are so popular right now, talking about big emotions, big feelings. It's all garbage. That was all invented for the mother to make her feel good. It has nothing to do with the toddler. It's all about the mom. And number 5 is stop trying to figure them out. They're not figure-outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They have one marble and some tumbleweed floating around in there. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years and that first year you were a potato laying on a mattress. They're just forming. Don't try and figure them out. That's my 5 top tips for parenting toddlers. That's a tongue twister. Okay. I'm just finding you also. Can you share where your resources are about you? Well, if you go on the link, you'll see everything I've got to offer in my business is there. Resources are. You want to know why I do what I do? What are my qualifications? Is that what you're after? I love talking about it. So people don't ask me that anymore, but they used to. It's an interesting story. Okay, I have nephews. I don't discuss other people's kids with you. I only discuss parenting. So yeah, I don't do that. Like I never would tell, okay. So this is Deanna Roberts. Yes, please. So you want my qualifications? When I was 11 years old, I started volunteering in daycare centers. And even back then, they said, how do you do it? How do you get such good behavior out of the kids and yet they all want to be with you? I didn't understand what I was doing, but I was doing leadership. That's what I teach. Anyway, because I lead with fun, by the way. It's all fun. It's all fun-based. That's my weapon, is fun and humor. That's how I operate with kids. It's all like having fun with them. Anyway, so then I was about 20 and I've been volunteering with kids for years. And then I thought, well, I should become a child psychologist. So I did a prerequisite course and they kicked me out after a week. I was asking too many questions because they were idiots what they were teaching back. This is back in 1980. It was just so stupid. It was all this outsmarting kids and this real authority, kind of holier than thou kind of attitude. I hated it. So anyway, not only did I ask too many questions, but the other students started asking me questions. Then I realized I can't be under that ignorant umbrella. Back then, I'm sure they've improved it by now, but back then it was so stupid. So I'm really glad I didn't do that. And then I just started volunteering in hospitals, psych wards, schools, daycare centers. I was always volunteering with kids. It was just my thing. And then when I was mentoring troubled teens, they said, you got to teach this, Lisa, because no one's ever talked to us like you do. And so then it all started. That was 17 years ago I started my business. But I have no formal qualifications. There's no way I could be under any authority's umbrella because what I teach is through experience, right? So, and a lot of my clients are teachers, principals, and child psychologists. Parenting is experience-based. Anyway. So that's my history. And I'm 63 years old now, so I've been working with kids for 52 years. Okay, tonight my 4-year-old and I are sitting down to the behavior board. We both are very excited to do it. That's why you're on it too. It gets the kids on board with this, sort of, no pun intended, but it gets the kids more involved with it because they get to punish you too. See it as a positive. Start small. Never start big. If you hire me for coaching, which I won't be doing forever, by the way, but I'm still doing coaching for now. But if you hire me for coaching, we're going to go in kind of hard because I know how you're going to make mistakes, by the way. That's part of it. I learn more from your mistakes, as do you. So I'm going to push you kind of hard. But if you're doing that behavior board on your own or doing the course on your own, the big boot camp course, go start small because you don't want to fail. If you fail when you're working with me, we use that to our advantage. But if you're doing it on your, it's completely different when I'm coaching. But when you're doing it on your own, make it easy. Don't start with the hard stuff. Start with the easy stuff. Ease your way in. Okay. How do you handle hitting, grabbing hands, taking 3-year-old, almost a very headstrong little boy? Okay. So can't keep his hands to himself. So 3 years old, the behavior board starts at the age of 3. So you put down no grabbing or hurting other people or word it somehow. Just explain it to him. You can't grab or whatever. But oh, just a second. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something here. Oh, it's not letting me see more. Oh, wait a minute there. Okay, so put down no grabbing or whatever it is he's doing, and then every time he does, there's a consequence. He will eventually learn. By the way, on that behavior board for the children, there are 2 consequences. The first one is the positive action. If they won't do that, then you resort to the negative deprivation. Once you've done that, you can't go back. So let's say their first consequence is empty the dishwasher. That's their consequence for whatever rule they broke. Then if they won't do it, you give them, always time it. Give them 10 minutes. 10 minutes is up, say, okay, so you didn't empty the dishwasher, go to the behavior board and you say, so now it's 24-hour media blackout. They run and empty the dishwasher. And then they say, can I watch TV tonight? And I said, no, it's 24-hour media blackout. But I did the dishwasher, not fair. Say it was 10 minutes was up, it was all over. You got to stand by that. You got to make it happen. I know parents struggle with this, but you got to make it work. When you say something, you have to follow through with it. Whenever a kid argues, this is what I coach parents to do. Whenever a kid, not fair, I hate you, this is what you do. So they're yelling at you. Let's say they're 8 years old and they're screaming at you because they didn't like the fact that you actually laid down the law. So they're yelling at you, I hate you, you hate me, I hate everybody. This is what I tell parents to do. You just go like this, whatever, and then just look away. There's no way you can get involved in their emotional turmoil. If you do, you become part of it and it grows. Where you put your energy grows. If you're going to put your energy into all that rotten stuff where they're screaming at you, it's going to grow. It's going to get worse and worse. So don't feed it. I have 6 kids and they constantly fight and argue. Help. Yeah, that's that kind of next level. I can't give you a quick answer here, but check out the behavior board. It's a good way of getting organized. I also strongly suggest you get systems in place, like a really good system for bedtime, a good system for meal times, for school morning routines. The more systems you have, the better leader you are, and the kids tend to get in line better. So yeah, get systems in place, get organized. Also, declutter your home. If there's toys everywhere, do a toy rotation system. So get rid of most of the stuff so you can rotate it every so often. But yeah, if you want to work with me, we could set up systems. I think the biggest family I ever worked with was, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And there was about 8 kids. And it was just setting up systems. That's all it was. And then teaching the parents how to follow through with them. But it was just system after system. Okay. By the way, if I don't answer messages, I've got hundreds of messages every day on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm doing my best here. I just can't answer them. I can't hire someone to do that either, because how would they know how to answer? And I don't actually answer parenting questions. This is where I do all my free answering. But I'll guide them in, like if they need a course or if they don't know where to go. It's basically just guiding you where to go. So don't ask me parenting questions in the messages. I can't answer them. And this is where I do all the free stuff. It's all in the lives. Yeah. Because I know after I do a live, a lot of people message me, but I can't get to them all. Do you deal with anyone that's a guardian but not a biological parent? Yes. Whoever has custody of the child, I will work with. Yes. They have to be living with you and you have to have legal custody. My son fights me every time he gets dressed and undressed. He's almost 2. You just have to win that battle. That's one of those battles you just got to win. I'll give you a good example of why you got to win this. We had 2 kids, and my son especially, he was the one who had tantrums. He would have been the one to put up a stink. My daughter never put up a stink with anything. Easiest kid in the world. She was just born that way. Anyway, so here's the difference. when my son was 1.5, or whenever they start squirming, I can't remember, he's 34 now, but anyway, whenever they start squirming, I just said, you're going to get changed. And I would put my arm across his chest and change him so fast, he didn't even know what was happening. He was just laying there, right? On the other hand, his father, and so my son didn't fight with me hardly ever. And his dad, on the other hand, would say, okay, if I give you a toy, will you stop it? He was always trying to bargain with them. And our son would twist and turn, and they learn it's a really good opportunity to exercise your leadership. Just physically overpower them, to get them dressed, to get them in the bath, to get them out the door, to whatever you got to do, to get them in the shopping cart. There's no freaking way my son would have not been in that shopping cart just because he went stiff as a board. I would have waited him out for hours if I had to. Whereas their dad might have said, if you walk beside there, maybe I'll, he was always trying to let them be in charge because he didn't want the scene. If you're afraid of a scene, a fit, or a tantrum, guaranteed your children are in charge. Guaranteed, if you're afraid of them. So yeah, I have no fear of that. I remember once this kid said to me, I was working with him, and he says, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And I said to him, bring it on. And he never did. Okay. How are you? I really enjoy your videos. Thanks so much. Excellent. Thanks for your support. I appreciate that. Tantrums. I actually have a whole course on tantrums. I'm going to tell my swing story because I tell it every day on a live, but I don't think I've told it. Well, I'm new on Facebook Lives, so maybe you haven't heard it before, but should I tell the swing story? Yeah, I'll tell the swing story. Anyway, this is how you deal with tantrums and how you don't deal with tantrums. This is the right way and the wrong way. So of course I'm going to tell you my way is the right way, but anyway. So anyway, this true story. My son was 2 years old and he had tantrums. They're either born to do them or they're not. So anyway, we went to the park and there was a new mom there. She just moved in the neighborhood. She also had a 2-year-old boy. So there's 2 swings, 2 2-year-old boys and 2 moms. So we're putting our little boys in the swings and we're chatting. Hi, I'm Lisa, and we're chatting. Then both our sons started grunting and pointing to the other swing. They both wanted the other swing. So we said, well, let's just switch them. Who cares, right? So we're trying to switch them over and they both start tantruming. Like they're just nuts, right? Toddlers are crazy. So anyway, here's what happened. I brought my son over to one bench and I sat him down. He tried to run for the swing. I put my arm out really fast and he sat back. He knew me at this point. When I said something, there's no way he was going to get back on that swing. Anyway, so he just sat back and he's screaming and having a tantrum. I'm looking at the birds in the trees. There's no way I would look at him or talk to him. No way. You never feed that stuff. So I'm completely ignoring him. I'm just looking around, waiting. Soon as he calmed, because I ignore the crazy, but then I reward the calm with attention. Soon as he finished with the tantrum, it was only about 2 minutes because he was starting to clue in at this point. So anyway, he finishes having a tantrum. I said, oh, are you all done? Okay, let's go back on the swing. That was it. 2 minutes. Anyway, it's all done. Here's the other mom on the other bench. She's talking to him the whole time. If you just said, please, mommy, may I please? And he's screaming and she says, give me a hug. Mommy loves you. And he's kicking her. And it's just a disaster. She's feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. She was turning beet red. She was so embarrassed. And I'm just pretending I'm not noticing. So anyway, it went on for about 20 minutes. It was just, they were both hysterical. So anyway, it went on for about 20 minutes with her feeding it the entire time. Any attention is tantrum food, by the way. So anyway, then he finally finishes. He has the hiccup cries. That. Now, that's where she should have changed her whole technique. But no, what did she do? She gave him a mini therapy session. She told him everything he did wrong, what he should have done right. He's 2. He's not listening. They don't listen. This is for the mom. All this mini therapy session talk, this please your parent style garbage, that is for the mother. That's feeding her own needs. She needed the mini therapy session, not him. Anyway, for 10 minutes, she's raking him through the coals, talking about everything he did wrong, what he should have done right. And they both were miserable. Anyway, I guess he finally went on the swing. My kid was tired of swinging after 30 minutes, so we went home. But anyway, do you see the difference? You see the difference? Why would you feed that? What's the point? What's the point? A tantrum is not, I used to get a lot of flack for this. I don't anymore, but when I first went on, started talking like this, oh my God, people attack me. You're just, you're abusing them, you're emotionally. Now, if your child is emotionally damaged by you ignoring an outburst at them not getting their own way, that's all it is. It's just them kicking up a storm because they didn't get what they wanted, when they wanted it, and how they wanted it. That's all it is. If your child is emotionally damaged by being ignored during that outburst, you got bigger fish to fry. That's a bigger problem because that child should be loved enough to be able to survive that. Like, that's not a big deal. Plus, they learn to stop that when you get good at ignoring tantrums, they minimize in duration, frequency, and intensity. Okay, because they don't work. If you keep feeding it and giving it attention, it's just going to keep going on forever till they're 16, 18, 30. It's never going to end because it's working. Okay. How do you deal with 4-year-old boy constantly wrestling, hurting 2-year-old sister? Put on the behavior board. That is free. It's in the description and the link. And put on there, no hurting your little sister. And every time he does, you try and intervene, by the way, because you want to do this every single time he does. She gets to play with his favorite toy or video game or whatever for, I don't know, 15 minutes, and you play with her. She's not allowed to play with him. You play with her. So you did something mean to her. Now you have to share your favorite toy with her. That's the consequence. So check that out. I do have a whole course on tantrums, by the way. It's called Tantrum Busting, something like that. I don't know. I never know the names of my courses. My my biggest selling course, I think, maybe it's tantrums. I think it's potty training though. Anyway, I wrote that came from a book I wrote years and years ago about potty training. Anyway, I used to do a lot of TV, like media work. And I was on a morning program, Breakfast TV or something. It's all done live, Anyway, so I'm on there. And you know what they did? They brought on a real toilet. So here I am on TV with a toilet. And I thought, geez, this is what my life has come to. That was funny. Anyway. So what do you talk about on TV, Lisa? My sidekick's a toilet. And literally, that's what I was doing. I'm one classy chick. Okay, so parenting questions. What else have you got for me? Okay, I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old boy who goes wild when we visit family members, even after we talk right before we go in about listening. Any suggestions? You're going to hate my answer. Why are you talking before you go out? What? Like, I don't understand that. I have no clue why you would do that. Because it does nothing. Anyway, I'll tell you a funny story that reminds me of that. I had this friend who had friends, and they had a whole bunch of kids, and they were just wild. Their parents were so humiliated. Every time we'd all get together for a pool party at someone's house, their kids were just awful. They were hitting other kids. They were just awful. And the parents said, well, we told them if they were good, they'd get something. So they were always telling them to be good when they went out. What about when they're home? Like, it's like you're sort of saying you be good. You're telling them they're rotten. If you're telling them to be good when you go out, you're actually identifying that they are rotten. That's what you're telling them. That's the message you're sending to them. Plus, where's the consistency? So I'm going to have a talk with them before we go out, because they have to have different personalities when we go out. They should have the same. My kids were exactly the same everywhere they went. Everywhere. Like, they had the same personality. I had the same personality. I was consistent. So yeah, it's like everyone wants that good behavior when you're out, but you got to have it all. It's got to be 24/7. You don't just get it when you're out. I remember one time we were out with them at some party, family gathering, and she said, how come your kids you're so lucky you got such easy kids? And my other friend knew I put in the work. I earned that. Anyway, but if my kids were ever acting out, which they just didn't do, but if they were ever acting out, all they'd have to do is get eye contact with me. That would be all it took. They would just look, I'd be looking at them and they'd look over and go like that. Oop, never mind. I was a leader. My mom was the same. I can remember if I was doing something I knew my mom wouldn't like, I would never look at her, but I couldn't help it. I eventually had to, and she'd be like this. And I go, oops. So that's what you want. You want mom's look or dad's look. You want that. That should be all you have to do. But you got to work for that. You got to earn that. You got to set yourself up as a leader. Check out my boot camp course. Teaches you how to be a leader in 5 weeks, or you can hire me. At the least, just check out the behavior board. It teaches you how to do rules and consequences. But yeah, you got to set yourself up as a leader, and then you don't even have to say anything. We used to travel all over the place, go to fancy restaurants. I would never have told my kids to be good when we're out. That would be like saying you're normally rotten at home, but when we go out, you better be good, have different personalities. It's sort of an insult at the same time. It's like reward charts. I hate reward charts. They send the message, you're normally rotten, but if you should happen to be good, you'll get a reward. See? And yeah, I know they work at school. Schools are institutions. They're not the same. Home is personal. Huge portion of my clients are teachers, principals, child psychologists. Those are institutional. That's institutional work. Has nothing to do with the home life. They're completely different. That's why I get hired by those people. It's not a crossover. Some stuff does cross over, but a lot doesn't. My 9-year-old middle child is my power struggle. He's very sweet, but when he doesn't get what he wants, well, of course, he's sweet when he gets what he wants. Everyone is. He talks back and always tries to get away with buying himself more time. What would you recommend? Check out the boot camp course. That would be perfect for you. It teaches you how to be a leader. Like, I would never argue, because you said he talks back and always tries to get away with buying himself more time. You would definitely be arguing with him, because there's no way he would. It doesn't make any sense for him to do that unless you're arguing with him. Because you're part of the problem, guaranteed. Between the age 3 and 12, all their behavior is a direct result of your parenting, which is the best news you can get, because you can change that. You can't change kids. I don't fix kids. I fix and teach parents here. You lead, they will follow. I got respect from hundreds of kids I was working with. Was it them? I never got easy kids, by the way. Not once, not ever did anyone say to me, here's an easy one, Lisa. They always went, good luck with this one. So, and I worked with troubled teens, and I managed to get respect with all of them because it was my leadership skills. It's all about you. So empower yourself with leadership skills, and then everything falls into place. There's no way I would argue with a child. I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. So I know you're arguing with him, because that's why he's doing that. It's a learned behavior. Is it okay to put a 2-year-old in timeout? Oh God, I hate timeout. I can't stand it. No, I never use timeout. Timeout is like saying to a child, you're not even worth being around. You go over there, sit in a corner all by yourself. It's humiliating. It's mean. Yeah, I don't like timeout. Obviously, I hate it. Toddlers that under the age of 3 is a toddler. Like 2 and 11 months is still, I consider that a toddler. Anyway, so they're about consistent corrective actions right in the moment, every single time. You do it 9 times out of 10, they'll remember the one time you didn't do it. So pick a battle, pick something that you want to address, just one thing. I wouldn't address everything in one day, but I'm level 10 with what I do. So if you're learning how to do this, you pick one behavior that you want to correct, and every single time they do it, you have consistent corrective actions. There's no yelling. You never yell. I never yell. You just very calmly, consistent corrective action. If they've just used a toy to hit, you say no, put the toy away. You remove fun from them, or remove them from the fun for a few minutes. What would you do about a 4-year-old breaking something? Mostly happens with toys. Well, I don't know. You didn't explain. Is it done on purpose? Or is he just rough? So I don't know the situation. Well, Yvonne, I'm just going to read this out, but I don't quite know what you mean by this. My daughter has my death stare, and my son my eye roll, LOL. Yeah. You better watch that eye roll when you got teenagers. Are there teenagers? You do an eye roll with a teenager, and watch out. Yeah. My favorite age is teenagers. Where do you get your free resource? The behavior board. Yeah, the behavior board's completely free. You go in the description. I'm not sure where I don't know Facebook. Someone else does it for me. So, I mean, I do all my videos, but I don't know anything about my Facebook page. It's a page, right? It's not a group. Anyway, I don't understand it. There's somewhere in my bio or description, there will be a link, and that will take you to my free behavior board, all my courses, and my coaching services. It should just be one link. It's Bratbusters at Podia or something. Podia is the platform I have all that on. Yes, we argue all the time. Yeah. If you're arguing with kids, no one's in charge. Certainly not you. So I'm trying to think of a good example. I go blank when I've got too many ideas. Arguing. Okay, let's say you got a 9-year-old and you're at the behavior board and you're laying down the law. You said, okay, well, you broke that rule, so the consequence is this. And then they come at you. They start arguing. So if they're arguing, and there's always 2 consequences on the behavior board. The first one is a positive action. If they won't do that, then you resort to the negative deprivation. Anyway, so you say, okay, so you broke the rule. So your consequence is you have to do the laundry. This is a 9-year-old we're talking about. You have to do the laundry. So I'll give you like an hour and you can start now. Okay. Don't say another word. No matter what they say, you just go silent. They could be arguing with her, just go like that. So the hour is up and you haven't said one word and they've done nothing. They've just told you off. They're walking around. And then you say, okay, the hour is up. So you didn't do the first consequence. So now it's media blackout for 24 hours. Do you understand? And then they come at you hard, calling you all sorts of names and that. And this, I would just go, there is something else I do. I don't really want to tell you on here because I only do this with 9 years old and up. And I only do it with clients maybe twice a year. It's kind of a bad one, but it's next level. If they're swearing at you in that, this next level, I won't bother telling you what that is right now. But yeah, there's no way I wouldn't explain myself. I didn't know, I didn't understand. Well, you'll know next time, won't you? That's about the most I would say. Well, you'll know next time, won't you? And then I just disengage. I just start doing my own thing. And, there's no way I would argue with a child. If you know you're doing the right thing. Plus, I used to say to my kids, and oh my God, if I did something wrong, they were all over me. But I always said, never argue with me in the moment. Later on, if you tell me you thought I was being unfair, then I'll make it up to you. And I would. I'd say, yeah, you're right. I was being unfair. How about I take you out for ice cream to make it up to you? But in the moment when I laid down the law, they wouldn't have said a word. They actually would have liked it if they thought I was being unfair because they knew they'd get ice cream or something after. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I was accountable too, but there's times and places like they would never have come at me yelling or anything like that. Never. So yeah, set yourself up as a leader. Leaders are calm. Leaders never yell. Leaders never argue. Six-year-old strong-willed child who fights when it's schoolwork time. Everything is a fight. Just put down the behavior board. Do your schoolwork within 1 hour of being asked to do so. Okay? So then don't say a word. If they don't do it in an hour, media blackout. Say, well, you'll have to earn the TV or whatever. If you just gotta have a consequence though. There has to be a consequence or they don't learn anything. Everyone's trying to reason with their kids. It's like a landlord reasoning with a tenant who won't pay their rent. You kick them out. There's got to be a consequence. That's how we all learn. That's why we pay our taxes. There's a consequence. That's why we pay for our groceries. We don't walk out without them because we'll get stopped and go to jail. There's a consequence for everything in life. Teach your children that. You don't want to raise these self-entitled snowflakes with mental health issues because they didn't learn about accountability growing up because you didn't teach it to them. That's what this is all about. I remember when I first saw Please Your Parent style coming in. And don't ask me much about her, what I'm talking about. You know what I mean. Because I don't study other stuff. I've never read a book on parenting or anything. Everything I teach is through my own experience with kids. Anyway, the first time I ever saw this coming in, it was participation awards. I thought, is that the stupidest thing I ever heard of? You just turn up and you get an award. Talk about raising self-entitled kids. You just turn up. Anyway, I used to have a column in the paper, and I went after this one like you wouldn't believe, because this mother had made headline news because it was controversial. She tried to sue the school for not giving her child a participation award. He didn't even turn up. She wanted him to get an award. Anyway, and she was going to try and sue the school. Well, I couldn't wait to write about that in my column. And I wrote, and I got attacked like you wouldn't believe. No one was ready to hear what I was saying. Everyone was getting on this bandwagon of rolling out the red carpet for your kids, and you didn't want them to be accountable for anything. You know, they're such delicate little morsels. You don't want them to ever be told they're not perfect, but then they're screaming and acting out and you're yelling at them. It's just a crap show. But anyway, yeah, that one didn't go over very well. This participation award, I thought was the stupidest thing I ever heard of. Anyway. Because then you know what they're going to turn into. They're going to go, you didn't validate my feelings. Well, I'm just a bus driver lady. Like they're just, me. It's just awful. How do you keep from arguing with them? What is your strategy? The consequences. There's media blackout for 24 hours. That is my strategy. I have laid down the consequence and it's going to happen. I don't care what they say to me after that. I'm just ignoring them. Whatever. And just ignoring them. I don't engage. They can't engage me in an argument. It's impossible. Impossible. Why would I do that to a child? Why would I allow them to be that awful and argue with me? They knew the behavior board. They understood the consequences. They just didn't think I was going to follow through with it. But I did, right? Plus, I'm on there too. I've already shown them. I have a rule and a consequence. I broke the rule. You got to make sure you break the rule to show them how it's done. I broke the rule, and I had to do the consequence that you laid out for me, or that you helped me lay out. So how do you argue with a child, though? You're just not doing them any favor. Like, how could you? Like, what I mean is, how could you argue with a child? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, because they're not making any sense. I don't make sense out of nonsense. Like, if an adult started coming at me or something, I'd just go, whatever. Like, I just don't get into that stuff. I'm a reasoner. I don't have a temper, really. So this is how my daughter and I fight. This is how we see each other every single day. We're very close. We're best friends. She's 29. This is how we fight. We're laughing at it one day. I said, yeah, I'm not sure I totally agree with that. Yeah, I can see your point, but yeah, I still think it might be a good idea. Perhaps I'll give it some thought. That's how we argue. Neither one of us have a temper. We're not feisty people. That's how we fight. We did that one day. We were just cracking up. Like, woo, big fight. But yeah, a kid could not pull me in. I don't do that. I just don't do that. Teens. You want to talk about teenagers? Woo. Got me all excited. That's my favorite age. That's in coaching. I deal with teenagers a lot. Not so much in lives. Parents of teenagers don't tend to turn up to lives as much. Okay, so I'm going to tell you my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with. If they want your advice, they're going to ask for it. By the way, they already know it. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. It's not a blanket statement, but it goes something like this. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? Like, give and take, right? So, and then number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff with teenagers. Save your energy for the big stuff if you ever have the big stuff, because you're going to need it. You don't micromanage them. You allow them to make mistakes just like you did. So if they do something stupid and it's not a huge deal, say something like this. Well, that was stupid. Wait till you hear what I did when I was your age, and then laugh at it. We all make mistakes. Life's messy. It's not about perfection. So yeah, it's my 3 top tips for parenting teenagers. They're my favorite age, because when you get good at parenting teenagers, if you don't adjust your style of parenting to teenagers, you're in trouble, because you really do have to start setting them free, because they are exercising their freedom and their independence. You have to allow them to do that. So anyway, my son was 15 and he says, I could never rebel because you're too reasonable and easy to talk to. And he wanted to rebel, but there was nothing to rebel against. So yeah, I was reasonable and easy to talk to. They told me everything. So, and someone said, oh, no way, they did not. You just think they did. Well, I told my mother everything, and my kids told me everything. So we were safe places to land. Yeah. And they told me, yeah, we told you everything. I found the link, but didn't see the behavior boards. It's coming. Takes about 5 or 10 minutes. It's a third-party delivery system. So might take 5 or 10 minutes. I ignore all those. I get tons of messages about that. I didn't get it. Oop, never mind. It takes a few minutes. So if you've signed up for the newsletter, it'll arrive in your inbox. So a corrective action seems easy with throwing toys. Just take the toy away. I knew someone was going to say this. What do you do with things? I know exactly what you're going to say, because I hear this. I thought someone would ask sooner. What do you do with things like hitting or purposely screaming at animals, cats? Because they're okay. So if they're doing something and you can't just take something away, you can still remove them from the fun, or remove the fun from them. So I would remove the cat. I would say no, and I'd pick up the cat and pet it and walk away with it. So you've got to send the message every single time that no, that's not okay. Okay, so that's how you do it. There's always a way, always. You remove them from the fun, remove the fun from them. But you don't do timeout. Timeout is when you send them away. You never send a child away. Because I think that's mean. Good morning from Australia. That's where my kids were born and raised. My son was born in Sydney at Nepean Hospital, and my daughter was born at the Wesley in Brisbane. So yeah, I love Australia. I was there for about 20 years. With 16-month-old twins, any suggestions on how to deal with squealing? Wait it out. They're just going to go through stage after stage after stage. The more you ignore it, the quicker it's going to go away. They do everything for attention at that age, or for a reaction, or even just for their own reaction. So yeah, just wait it out. They go through stage after stage, annoying stage after annoying stage. Just when you think you've got your toddler figured out, they flip and come up with something else. So yeah. You get it when you sign up for emails. Yeah, sign up for the newsletter. That's when you'll get it. Thanks for that. Yeah, I don't answer those messages anymore because I know it's delayed. It didn't used to be, but I've got it on a new platform now. I just changed it a few months ago. So now it is a delay in getting your behavior board. It's only 5 minutes or something. How do we go about hiring you? Just go in the link above and the coaching will turn up in there. Okay. So you said, no, he doesn't cross the line of swearing. Definitely eye rolls. Yeah, eye rolls never address an attitude. Never comment on an eye roll. Or that's attitude. If you start micromanaging and trying to address attitude is just a sign they don't respect you. Like, I never got an eye roll or anything. Why would my kids eye roll with me? Because they respected me and I respected them. I wouldn't have done that to them either, by the way. It just, it's passive aggressive stuff. I just didn't do it. So, but yeah, it just says that they don't respect you, but you've got to work. You know what that says? If you get an eye roll, this is what I would think. I would think, I got some work to do on myself. I got that because I'm not a leader yet. That's all that means. So attitude is just because you're not a leader. If you're a leader, they'd be embarrassed because they want to please you. Children want to please a leader because they look up to you. You're like a mentor. You're fun. You bring out the best in them. They like themselves when they're with you. So why would they eye roll? They wouldn't. It would be like eye rolling themselves. They'd be embarrassed. So think about that. Work on yourself. It's all about leadership. You lead, they will follow. By the way, children need, crave, and want a leader. It's a natural instinct. They need guidance. They're children. They need someone to lead them, to guide them. Between 3 and 12, that's when you're at the height of your leadership. That's why my boot camp course is the age of 3 to 12. You're kind of the same parent in that time, even though they're very different. The course addresses all those ages and different, sex talks and how you do all that with different ages. But you're kind of the same parent. You're very much the leader. They want to please you. Teenagers, not so much. They just don't want to disappoint you. You don't want teenagers who want to please you all the time. That's, you don't want that. You want them to start thinking for themselves. But yeah, you're at the height of your leadership between the age of 3 and 12 years old. And when you're a really good leader, they want to please you. They just naturally do. That's what you want. We talked about consequences all the time. We take things away as a consequence and we explain there is a good consequence. Shoot, sorry, the screen just blipped and I lost it. I want to read that because I want to know where you're going with that. No, I don't believe in middle child syndrome, by the way. Okay, consequent. It said see more, and I tried to hit it, but it wouldn't work. See more. Okay, we take things away, good consequence and bad consequence. It's their choice, right? What consequences they get due to how they behave. Exactly. Yeah. I used to always say to my kids, it's your choice. Like, I never used a behavior board. I just, did it. That's a teaching tool I developed about 15, 16 years ago. Because I thought, how am I going to teach parents to be accountable? So I put them on the behavior board. But anyway, yeah, I always said to my kids, drove my son nuts. I used to say, well, everything in life is, I know it's my choice. It's my choice. What I put out, I get back. I know. He hated hearing that. And I used to say, I really believe in karma. What you put out comes back at you, good and bad. But it might be a slow burn. Like, you're not going to get it right away, I remember once saying, he's actually very funny. I remember once saying, well, the reward is being a good person. He said, well, that's not enough for me. Talk teens. Okay. I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories with my son. No, I'll tell you my favorite story with one of my clients. And it's kind of an amalgam because it was a whole bunch of different clients who did this. Anyway, I was working with this one in particular who stands out. And she said I could tell the story. but I don't say names, obviously. But anyway, this was a year or two ago. And she was at war with her 16-year-old. You know, one of those kids you just don't get along with. They were always butting heads from day one. From the time he was a toddler, they never really got along. They were always they loved each other, but they never got along. Anyway, so he was 16, and for his birthday, they had money, and they bought him a real fancy car for his birthday, brand new, real fancy car. So, but he didn't have his driver's license yet. So every night after, and they wanted him to have it because he was driving himself to sports, and that's why they got it for him, because they didn't want to drive him around. So anyway, every single night after dinner, the dad was working long hours, so the mom had to take him out for a driving lesson every single night. And they fought like cat and dog, screaming at each other, arguing, and she nagged him the whole time. So I said, okay, got it. I said, on the behavior board, your rule is no yelling. Make sure you yell, by the way, because you want this to happen. So your rule is no yelling. Your consequence is you cannot speak during the next driving lesson. Can't say a word unless it's look out for that train or pedestrian or something. Like, it has to be life and death. So she says, well, I can't do that. And I said, well, you're going to have to. You paid me money. Don't waste your money. That's what you have to do. Because that's when they were at war every single night. So anyway, she ended up doing it. But what she did was she thought, I'm never going to be able to stop talking. So what she did was she put painter's tape or masking tape on her mouth to remind herself not to talk. Anyway, he didn't see this, but she's getting in the car and she catches herself in the side view mirror with this tape and she starts to laugh. And the tape goes like that. And when she's laughing, it's blowing in her breath, like laughing, and it's flapping away. He looks over, sees this, and they start giggling. She said it was the first time they'd ever enjoyed each other. They laughed the entire driving lesson. And then we worked on everything else, and we got their relationship where we wanted it. But I thought that was one of the cutest stories, that she put this tape on her mouth. But yeah, you got to bond with your teenagers. You don't start disciplining teenagers. If you're struggling with your teenager, if people hire me all the time, they're always disappointed in the first session because we don't deal with the teenager's behavior. We deal with your relationship. You have to connect with them and bond with them before you even consider disciplining them or dealing with stuff that you don't like. So we have to work on your relationship. That's that first session. I always tell them, you're going to hate me in the first session because I'm not discussing what they're doing wrong. Why would I do that? It doesn't make any sense. We're going to work on your relationship first. And then by probably week 3, then, or maybe week 2, then we'll start to address some stuff. But we got to negotiate with that teenager. So, and then they often say, yeah, but they're being so ridiculous. And I'm like, right, but you're the adult. You got to take the high road. You got to, with teenagers, you got to give, maybe a little bit of get. Give, get. Give. And this is what frustrates parents. It's so unfair. And I go, yeah, they're teenagers. They're growing. They've got a lot of pressure on them. They got hormones flying. They're finding themselves. And you expect them to be thoughtful towards you? What are you, nuts? Like, some of them are. My daughter always was. You know, that's rare. They're very self-absorbed. Just like you were. I think people forget. Anyway. So yeah, they're my favorite age. Once you're good at dealing with teenagers, they actually are a lot of fun. You're going to learn more about yourself through watching and raising teenagers than you'll learn about anyone else. They're going to, because they've got that brain power. They're smart, but they're not formed yet. They're still fresh. Like the way they look at the world, I find teenagers fascinating. Just the way they look at the world. They're highly emotional too, like ridiculously so. Boys tend to be hold stuff in. So I've got a few tricks around that. But yeah, girls tend to tell you everything. Too much. But yeah, they're fascinating. Once you get good at listening, it's listening skills is where it's at. Get good at listening. And if you're in a confrontation or you feel one coming on with your teenager, you say something like this. If you're starting to fight with them or something, you say something like this. I'll tell you what, let's discuss this after dinner. Don't say, we'll talk about it later when you've calmed down. Talk about passive aggressive accelerating. Yeah, a lot of parents do that. They just can't help themselves. They have to do that little and yeah, that'll won't work for you. It'll backfire. They're going to shut you out. And how do you connect with a teenage boy? Let's say you're a mom, you got nothing in common with your teenage boy. I went through this with my son. We were best friends. Talked about everything, buddy. He's 14. He turned 15 overnight. A man, turned into a man overnight. I remember this like it was yesterday. Every single morning I'd wake up, I'd go, morning, sweetie. And he'd go, morning, mom, you know, with the voice cracking. And one morning he just turned 15. I go, morning, sweetie. And he turns around and he goes, morning, mom. He like turned into a man overnight and he stopped talking as much. He wasn't my girlfriend anymore. I thought, how am I going to connect with this kid? We had nothing in common. He liked heavy metal music. He all he wanted to do was play video games and listen to heavy metal music and hang out with his friends. He didn't want to hang out with old mom. So I thought, what am I going to do here? Anyway, so what I did was I became furniture. He'd be down in the rec room playing his video games. So I'd just take a magazine and I'd sit down beside him, flipping through my magazine. And I never said anything. As time went on, next thing you know, we're talking about his gaming. Next thing you know, he's handing me a controller. Then he's making me playlists, finding music that he thinks I might like. By the way, I'll only say this once, but my favorite album for years was NWA's Greatest Hits. Look it up. I had to put all the sunroof and the windows up in the minivan before I could even listen to it. But yeah, I opened my mind to his world. You got to enter their world, but wait till you're invited. But I became furniture. I just sat there waiting to be invited. But I never pushed myself on him. So yeah, that's how we reconnected once he turned into a man. So he grew so fast. He was like a peewee. He was his sister's 5 years younger. They were almost the same height at one point. She was about 8 and he was 13. He was really short. And then he just sprouted, he turned into 6 feet tall when he was just like within 6 months. Next thing you know, he's 6 feet tall. It was really bizarre how fast he grew. So yeah, teenagers, once you get good at, they were my favorite age to work with too. I used to mentor troubled teenagers and they were my favorite. I got some training, but I never used any of it. My goal was always to make them like themselves when they were with me. That was always my goal. Make them like themselves when they're with me. And some of them even said, I didn't even like myself till I met you. Like that was always my goal because that is, you know how much power you have? When you make them like themselves when they're with you, how much power do you think I had? Like emotionally. And do you think I was careful with that? Oh my God, yes. I looked at them the wrong way and they would get upset because they cared so much what I thought. There's a lot of power in that. Bring out the best in them. Make your kids like themselves. There's a lot of power in that. Boy, I rambled on there. Anyway, you asked about teenagers. You've got it. They're my favorite age. Would you ever throw away a toy if they're hitting with it? No, that's too dramatic. That makes you look like you're out of control. It makes you look bad. I wouldn't do it. No. I just put it up there where they can see it but can't touch it for a period of time. If they're 2 years old, maybe half hour. If they're 10, maybe a day. Well, they're going to get it if they're 10. They could reach it. But you know what I'm saying. I don't let people in on these lives because someone asked to come in. I can't because about a year and a half ago, I was new at doing lives on TikTok and I do them every day now. But anyway, I was new and someone asked to come in on a live and I didn't know how to, I just said, okay, sure. I let them in. And she started talking about her business because I have a huge following on TikTok. Like it's like almost 600,000 people. And she just talked about her business. I got rid of her real fast. I said, this is for parents. I'm serving parents here. And click, got rid of her, but I've never let anyone in since. I was horrified. I didn't realize that people want my audience, right? You should see the stuff that I get that people they want my audience. They can't, I'm not giving it away. I'm here to serve you. I'm not here to let other people throw their business on you. Why no timeout? Because timeout is humiliating. Think about it this way. If you made a mistake at work and your boss said, okay, you're 36 years old and you sit in that corner for 36 minutes and you think about what you did, how humiliating. It's no different for children. Do you really learn anything by sitting in that corner? They have learned nothing. All they learn is I'm crap. I'm garbage. I'm not even worth talking to. I stink. I'm awful. Nobody loves me. That's all they're thinking. They're not thinking about what they did. Do you think they are? You've been misinformed. They're just sitting there feeling like garbage. So where's the lesson? I'm garbage. That's the lesson. I think it's mean. I hate it. Yeah, I'm opinionated. There's 3 things that are really commonly used for discipline that I hate. Timeout is the least of the third that I hate. The second one I hate more is diversion. It's like when they're doing something bad, it's different from incentive for doing something good. That's different. But a diversion is when they're doing something bad and you divert them with something fun, because you never divert with broccoli. It's always like, look at this candy. So that's rewarding bad behavior. That's a direct reward. The worst one is the countdown method. If you don't stop that by the time I count to 3, 1, 2, 2.5, 2 and 3. It makes it, then they keep pounding their little brother more and more. So, and then you get to 3 and then break and they stop. They've learned nothing. They've learned that they can pound about 500 times in 3 counts, and then there's no consequence for that. It's like, wait a minute, I can be rotten in the short term. It makes you look like you're afraid. Only parents who are afraid of their kids count down, because there's no way I would count down. There's just no freaking way I would do that. Yeah, it makes you look like you're afraid of them, which you are. If you're counting down, you're afraid of your kids. Best tips for potty training a 2-year-old. It's a whole process. I have a mini course on that. If you look in the description or whatever Facebook's all about, there's a link there. And the potty training course, I think it's my most popular course. It's a whole system. I train my kids at 2.5. My son was in 1 day, no pull-ups, no nothing. In 1 day, he was completely trained. My daughter was 2 days. I was already a leader anyway, so they kind of knew when I said something was going to happen, it was going to happen. But the party's supposed to be fun. So it's not always going to be that successful because I was already a leader. But it's a great way to start setting up some of your leadership skills too, because you're fun, you look like you know what you're doing, and hopefully it'll work really quickly. There's no guarantee with any of this stuff. They're human beings we're dealing with. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain. I know I have a lot of work to do, and so does my husband. Our kids are, was that teenagers? I don't catch the names when I'm answering questions usually. You said the Awesome Soap Company. Are you also on Instagram? Or is that just, because I've seen that before. Are you on TikTok? I've seen that before. The reason I picked up on that is I love cleaning. You should see my personal hygiene and my cleaning cupboard for my home. Like, I just love, ooh, a soap company. That's why it's stuck out. Potty training tips. Yeah, I have a course on potty training. It's a whole process how you do it. It's a reward system, and it's also a party. And you never, ever, 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 ever get kids to clean up themselves or after themselves. It's bodily functions. You do that. You clean up everything. And, oh, well, mommy pees on the floor too. No big deal. It's all positive. It's a party. It's all positive. Children learn through fun and positivity when it comes to potty training. Yeah. Any books you recommend? Well, I've never read a book on kids or parenting, not once, not ever, because I'm experience-based. All my work with kids is what I teach and raising my own kids. So no, I don't know. But here's what I recommend you do, because this is experience-based. The reason I know that is because a huge portion of my clients are teachers, principals, and child psychologists. So they understand that this is experience. That I teach parent-child relationships, and a lot of stuff, I couldn't do what they do. A lot of stuff does not cross over. But here's what I strongly suggest you do, because it is heavily experience-based, all this parenting stuff, is if you're going to take advice from someone, make sure they finish the job with their own kids. In other words, do they know what they're doing right through the teen years and young adult years? Like, that's what it takes. You have to know where you're going to do the right thing today. Everything I teach is basically heading you, I want to get you through those teen years. That's what I'm doing. I'm investing in the teen years for you. Anyway, so make sure they finish the job with their own kids. Plus, they might have just had really easy kids. I got respect when my kids were tiny, and I sailed right through the teen years, so I didn't learn a lot with them. And then the second one is they have to have experience with hundreds of other kids with all sorts of challenges, because you have to have seen everything you're talking about, right? So yeah, it's heavily experience-based. If you're taking advice from someone who just has little children, it's like taking financial advice from someone with $10 in the bank. They haven't proved their wealth. They haven't proved that they know how to raise adults. Because a lot of what's working with little children is done through intimidation or reward, and they actually aren't learning much, and the teen years can often be a total disaster. So a lot of what they're doing, I know what's out there. Just because people have told me, clients come to me and they've been doing all those things. And they say, oh, it's so popular right now. And I think, yeah, that's backfiring. That's why you hired me, right? So, yeah. So just make sure they're heavily experienced, they finish the job with their own kids, and they've worked with hundreds of kids. I know sometimes I don't actually look at, I don't know who else is out there. I've never looked. I purposely stay away from all that because I'm not going to critique another person's advice. If I'm critiquing something, I don't know who's teaching it. Anyway, But I'll often get people competition, especially when I went on TikTok. Oh my God, they came after me like you wouldn't believe, saying horrible stuff about me and everything. and then they'd actually say the age of their kids. They only had toddlers and they're giving parenting advice and they're critiquing me. How can you do that if you've only got a toddler? It doesn't make any sense. They didn't know I was laughing at them. But anyway, I never answered any of that stuff. All I do with my toddler is I tell her I don't like that, and she listens. Aren't you lucky you got an easy toddler? That doesn't work with most toddlers. What if your child doesn't respond to a consequence? You say, now you have to do this, but they refuse. I've already answered that. There's two consequences. There's the positive action. If they refuse to do that, then you resort to the negative deprivation. You take something away. It's usually 24-hour media blackout, so no screens for 24 hours. You can do that, right? If you've got no leverage, you're going to have to hire me. We can find some. I've never worked with a client where I couldn't find some. I think in the last year, I've done this twice, I think. We've had, maybe even just once, we've had to invent leverage. I don't want to talk about that on here because I don't like resorting to it. It's kind of ugly, but we have to invent leverage. If you've got older kids and they don't care about anything, you can't take anything away, we'll invent something. We'll find something we can take away. So yeah, there's always something. I love a challenge. I don't get many challenges anymore because I've been doing this for so long, but every so often I'll get one that's really tricky and I'll go, oh, I like this. I try not to look too excited by the parents' pain. It's like, I love a challenge. My 14-year-old son suddenly acts as if I'm the enemy, right? Is this a normal stage that will end soon? I don't say it's going to end soon, but it is a normal stage. The thing is, you probably haven't flipped how you parent, okay? Teenagers are different. You go through 4 stages of parenting, and 13 plus is the teen years. You have to start changing how you parent. I'll tell you my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If you get really good at this, they're going to tell you everything. So you listen to understand and show empathy. Oh, okay. And that's kind of how you listen. I call it silent listening, and I'm a talker. It was hard to do, but my kids told me everything. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything. It's not a blanket statement, but it's a general statement. It goes something like this. Say, look, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? In other words, give and take, right? They usually say, get off my back, and say, well, that's impossible, but let's try and negotiate here. So negotiate pretty much everything. You want to give them some power and some say in how their life is going. Number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff. Save your energy for the big stuff if you even have it, because you're going to need it. So you don't micromanage a teenager. Allow them to make mistakes, the small ones. If they do something stupid, just say something like this. Well, that was stupid. Wait till you hear what I did when I was your age, and laugh it off with them. It's okay to make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with that. You did it. They're doing it. And the future is going to do it. Your grandchildren are going to do it. Life's messy. So anyway, that's my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. If you want my help with teenagers, I don't have any courses on that. It's coaching. So if you want to hire me, everything's in the link above. I'm going to get going. I've been on here for an hour now and I've got so much work to do. Anyway, I got to get going. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm new here on Facebook. I've only really been posting now. Well, I don't do it. Someone else does, for about 2 or 3 months. And it's been going great. And I really appreciate your support. My biggest audience is on TikTok. That's where I dump all of my own videos, and then other people pull everything off of there. And then from these lives. So if you want to see all my dump videos that I do myself, that's all on TikTok. Then Instagram's also one of my big platforms, but someone else manages that too. But I do all. So you're going to get the crappy videos on TikTok too, because I do it. The person who curates everything gets the best of the best stuff. But I do. If you want to see some of my crappier videos, that's just me wanting to talk about whatever I talk about. That's on TikTok. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be back again soon. Bye now. Bye, YouTube.